There are still applications that are going to need to be made. But you can certainly reduce that need by leaving some of the leaves. So what's so valuable? And I know some of this is a little redundant from what Mark said, but you have organic matter, clearly. Plant nutrients. And the simple thing is, again, going back to that forest ecosystem, leaves that are growing on the trees today, they have nitrogen in them, they have phosphorus in them, they have carbon, organic matter, they have all micronutrients in them. When they drop in the fall, any nutrients that are still in the leaves will decompose and become bacteria and fungi. In the spring, when the soil temperature warms up, there are predatory microbes that are going to feed on the bacteria and fungi and then release all of those plant nutrients into plant available form. The trees take them back up and grow new leaves. And it's a cycle that we break by cleaning the leaves up every year. So basically, bacteria and fungi, just to kind of sum it up, they decompose organic matter. They retain all those nutrients that were in the leaves or mulch or whatever you're using. They build soil structure by creating those soil aggregates. And they also suppress disease. And we saw, they create that shield around the root system and really protect the plant from disease. So, which plants grow best with what soil organisms? Conifers, they grow in a soil with tremendous amount of fungi. And then you can go down to the, closer to the bottom, when we get into grasses, most grasses are about balanced. They have just as much bacteria and fungi in their soils. The leaves that you're leaving are going to be really geared towards growing a lot of fungus, a lot of beneficial fungus in the soil. But how many people have weeds in their lawn? All right, if you look down way on the bottom line, weeds grow in a very bacterial soil. So just use it as an indicator. If your lawn has weeds in it, your soil has a lot of bacteria, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it needs to be in balance. Your leaves can actually help grow a lot of beneficial fungus and tip the scale and create a growing environment that's much more conducive to lawn than weeds. So the leaves can be a very good resource, okay? And just to go back to that original slide that I put up where it said the forest will drop about 4,000 pounds of leaves. An average lawn will produce, somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 pounds of grass clippings a year. And that food resource is just a little bit more, will grow fungi but bacteria. And the clippings from weeds will grow a lot more bacteria. That's what they do. So, it's kind of hard to knock out the incumbent, so to speak, if you're, leaving everything that they drop. They condition the soil so that they can preserve their own species. So, we can actually help manage this as property managers and manage all the resources that we have to keep everything healthy. All right, so now we kind of got a little Reader's Digest version of bacteria and fungi, which are decomposers. Then there are predators. So protozoa and nematodes, those are things I'm talking about. And they live in and around soil pores and soil aggregates. So a very well-structured soil like this one, where the roots are really even, you got a lot of nooks and crannies, that's where you really have a lot of protozoa and nematodes. And these are just guys that they help feed on bacteria and fungi and will cycle nutrients into plant available form. Okay, so they're very beneficial. If you had only bacteria and fungi, your plants would starve. These guys help complete the cycle. Like I said, the leaves drop in the fall, bacteria and fungi decompose them, but now they're holding on to all those nutrients. These guys, protozoa and nematodes, now come in, they feed on the bacteria and fungi and cycle everything back to the plants. So protozoa are primarily bacterial feeders, nematodes feed on a whole host of different things. Here's a video clip, no sound needed, but just to give you an idea of that there are living organisms and they're quite mobile in the soil, but this is the type of protozoa. I just figured I'd show you one little clip. The real talent here is me trying to hold a camera on the eyepiece of the microscope and follow this guy around. But anyway, this guy, what he's actually doing is he's kind of going through soil and he'll feed on bacteria. And then he'll release plant available nutrients. Now for size comparison, you can see one little guy right underneath him. Kind of right in that zone. That's a little bacterium. This is protozoa, so you can see he needs to eat a whole lot of bacteria. He's much larger. But going back to that soil aggregate that I showed you earlier, think about bacteria make the aggregates. This guy will bounce all the aggregates around and help also improve soil structure. So then, again, just for size comparison, that's a protozoan, that's a nematode. And again, these are predators of bacteria and fungus. So nematodes, again, they make nutrients available to plants. They feed on a whole host of different things. And they're typically very beneficial. You only hear about that.
Wait.
That's,
Are you serious?
that's the head of a bacterial feeding nematode.
Lord.
Not something you'd expect to see in a Spielberg film.
Is that true?
Yes, that's a bacterial feeding nematode. These little kind of like feathers and stuff around the head actually help it as it kind of motors through the soil, filter bacteria into it.
We cannot see this with our eye.
No, that's an electron microscope.
No, I mean nematodes, we cannot
You know what? You could see some. Some are large enough. This is a predatory nematode feeding on a root-feeding nematode. I should have saved the dog-eat-dog thing for this one. Okay, and then there are, so now those are the critters so far that spend all their time below ground. Now microarthropods are things like insects and mites and that kind of things, and they spend earthworms. They're things that spend some of their time above ground, some of their time below ground. And again, just for size comparison, there's a nematode. That's actually a fungal feeding mite. So, but it's, yeah, I mean, I guess it could be about the size of a tick or maybe a little bit larger than that. Dog tick. Okay, leaves can help aerate the soil. And this is what Chris was saying about the porosity of the soil is increased because water can drain through the field quicker after a heavy rain. Because leaves, believe it or not, can help aerate the soil. I know everyone's going to go, what's he talking about? This is a corn leaf that an earthworm has taken into its burrow. And this is, again, one of the great reasons why leaves should really be a big part of your mulching program, because not only are they, have all that great surface area, but they're pliable, meaning that an earthworm can take it and bring it down to a lower level. Let's say it brings it 6 inches or 12 inches down in the soil. You've now figured out a way to get organic matter 12 inches down without using a rototiller, without doing anything like that. So earthworms will do that, and they work so cheap. You hardly even have to pay. Okay, now earthworms have a lot of other benefits. First of all, they fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. So our atmosphere is, 75% nitrogen or so, and guess what? Your plants need a lot of it, but they take it in through the soil. There are bacteria that live in earthworm castings that actually fix nitrogen, take it from the atmosphere, and put it down in the soil. That's called free fertilizer. There are 5 times more available nitrogen in earthworm casts than in surrounding soil. So all right, here's your earthworm coming up to grab that leaf, drag it down in its burrow, and look at that little aeration hole. There's another aeration hole, and there's the earthworm castings up at the surface that are rich in nitrogen that you didn't have to put in the soil, and they left you free fertilizer. So they're very good, and the more leaves you can put down, to a degree, there's a balance, but they will certainly help encourage earthworm populations you know, to proliferate. Here's my fake bag of fertilizer. But basically, the point is, all these different critters in the soil, they all have nitrogen in them. And they all have phosphorus in them, all have potassium. They all have all the things that we put down as fertilizer. So if we can really pay attention to all the soil organisms in the soil and keep them well fed, they will provide much of the fertility we need. All right, and when we get to nutrient cycling, if you have really good soil organisms, really good soil biology, your soil can cycle 2.5 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per month. Okay, so let's just say in our neck of the woods, we may get 10 months that the soil's warm enough to actually have this happen and have these guys be active. That's about 25 pounds per year cycled. And let's just compare that to a lawn care program. A lot of lawn care programs call for about 5 pounds of N per 1,000 square feet per year. So if we take care of our soil biology, we could have 5 times that available. Now, we still may have to manipulate it to become active at the times we want the lawn to green up. So there's a science behind that as well. So it doesn't mean that you could just cancel the lawn care service. You know, you may have to transition and have them, you know, be an organic company and figure out how to manipulate the biology instead of adding chemistry. But the same thing happens in a tree soils. Most tree fertilizers will provide 1/2 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year at the label rate, or thereabouts. Could be higher, could be lower. But if you think about that, you had 25 pounds per 1,000 square feet available if you just take care of your soil organisms. You have a really good resource there. It's just a matter of tapping into it. A lot of compost facilities, one of their, you know, chief resources is the leaves. But like we said, it's been said before, I'm not the first one up here saying it, but why truck the leaves off-site and then bring compost back in? You know, what else you can do is you could leave the leaves, and then you could apply a compost tea over the leaves to help provide all the bacteria and fungi to help degrade those on-site in place. This service not only you know, can be done by most lawn care professionals, landscape professionals. It can be a very profitable service, and it will improve the plant health. It's, again, as Mark said earlier, it's a win-win. So basically my take-home message, mimic the natural ecosystem, manipulate the biology instead of the chemistry. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Paul. I wish every property owner in Westchester County and every landscaper will eventually see these pictures in this presentation by Paul and come to be reminded that it's not dead dirt that we're walking on and that we're growing from. It's living soil. It's a living community. The soil provides a habitat for a whole community of organisms. This is very exciting. So now we move to the practical nuts and bolts of the program. Good idea. Paul's soilfoodwebnewyork.com is the website that you can access to get more information or follow up on this. And we do have that on the back of the program, today's program, on the back table. We have the resource list for our presenters and our landscaper experts who will be talking in a minute on the Q&A.